This is Zettelcast, brought to you by readers, writers, thinkers, and teachers from LiLLiPub, along with our partners in thought, our Zettelcastans. In this show, we share discoveries that our Zettelcastans have shown us.
There you go.
And compare notes on how we're using this marvelous invention in our creative work. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Book.
Let's do it again.
All right.
Episode 74, Notecard Nerd-Along, Part 1A.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Zettelcast. This is episode number 74, and it is part 1A of our Notecard Nerd-Along. Last time we talked about research-driven writing, and this time we're going to practice it a little bit. So our assignment today was to do some research and then write something that came out of the research that you did. So we can actually practice research-driven writing, which is going to be Victoria Crowder's first newsletter. I hope you all have your copy of Zettelcast for Fiction Writers. Boy, is it a powerhouse. I am just loving it. So we are going to be inspired by Victoria, even though we don't have her with us today. So who wants to start us off?
Well, I actually have some cards. Yeah, yeah, but I didn't get to upload it. But it's not blurred. So can you see where is it? I can't.
If you hold it right in front of your face, we might be able to. Yeah, well, no, but hey, no.
Is it blurred?
It's well, when it's not blurred, it's too small to read. So why don't you just tell us what's on your card?
I could do that. Okay, so the research card is I just labeled it research dot John Lennon's killer.
Oh.
Yeah. And the name of it is, well, the story is called Footnote. And so footnote pattern, 3 books. In major Lennon biographies, Chapman is treated as the final event, not a main subject. Okay, that's where I'm coming from. And I found Norman, who wrote a book in 2008 called John Lennon, The Life. It's 852 pages. And looking in the index, which I was so happy to find that book had an index because I have the Kindle version. It says Chapman Mark David. He's from page 804 to 807. So he's got a tiny share at the very end of the book. From 804 to 807, that's like 4 pages. You know, he's then there's Connolly, who wrote a biography in 2018 called Being John Lennon, which is 432 pages. And in the index that it had as well under Chapman Mark, it listed page 400 and then page 404 through 406 near the end. Okay. And one last one, a biography by Womack called John Lennon, 1980. That was 352 pages. And you know, of course, that Lennon was killed in 1980. So this was the last year of his life. This biography focused on that last year. And I looked there everywhere. And Mark Chapman is not there at all. It's not listed at all. Chapman, just searching for Chapman, that got a hit, but it wasn't him. It was somebody else. Okay. And when I tried murderer, got 5 hits. So his act was described, but he was never named in that book that was actually focused on 1980. So that was my research card. So the story, so we go right into the story, right?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, okay. So it's called Footnote. He rehearsed in the mirror, not speeches, posture, chin level, shoulders squared, the look of someone accustomed to being watched. He practiced holding eye contact with his own reflection, calibrating expression as if the room was already full. At Chow, he tested it. He said his name and waited. The response was negligible. A shrug, a brief glance. Chewing resumed. No follow-up questions. No shift in seating. Conversation continued without incorporating him. The system did not rearrange itself. He finished his meal. The book arrived through approved channels, a paperback stamped by the institution. He opened it immediately. He began at the front, early chapters. Childhood, Liverpool, music, partnership, no trace. He moved to the middle. Success, politics, exile, return, still no trace. He turned to the final section where the rupture occurred. There he appeared briefly, described in functional terms. The language identified an act, not a life. He marked the pages. He obtained 2 more biographies. He examined them the same way, scanning chapters, locating references. In both, his name appeared on narrow clusters of pages, less than 1% of the total text. In one book devoted to Lennon's final year, he was not named at all. He checked the index entries where they existed. The references were sparse, contained finite. He did the arithmetic. Across hundreds of pages, the narrative mass built up elsewhere. Lennon occupied the chapters. Lennon occupied the analysis. Lennon occupied the aftermath. His own presence registered only at the point of termination. At Chow, he had received indifference. In print, a bare mention. By page count, he was marginal. At best, a footnote.
Mm.
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
It's
says,
gripping.
yeah, it says so much about him without saying it. You just demonstrate. He's just so totally focused on himself. He just cannot get his eyeballs turned around to see the outside world.
Mm, yeah. I was trying to do another interiority, like I can't even say the word, but the idea of what goes on in somebody's head while the world is while they're interacting with the world or while they're in the world, what's going on in their minds. And so I don't know why John Lennon came up, but but he did. You know, so and I also have a story card.
All right.
Um, and the story card is the first point is a life colon 800 pages, a killer colon 4. And then point 2, he does not travel the decades, he arrives at the end. Sometimes he's not even named. And point 3, the life is the story, the killer is the period.
Ooh.
So that's what I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bravo.
Yeah. Wow. The usual in-depth, your writing just always hits to the depth of a thing.
Indeed.
Now I've got my hearing aids on.
Your writing is very deep. It always finds its way through all of whatever clutter may be of surrounding the subject. Your writing always cuts right through and touches the bedrock.
Yeah. If I could just do that at will, like snap my finger and just do it.
You and every other writer on earth wants that.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking that I should be closer to that as I finish Victoria's book because I'll have the terms
Yeah.
for things.
Yeah.
So,
And if you do her exercises, if you do your homework, you'll have a lot of practice.
yes, ma'am.
Says the queen of homework.
Well, I think the real queen of homework is Victoria herself.
Oh, yeah. She said early on how she really likes homework.
Yeah.
Yeah, she likes it. Hmm.
Yeah, and she followed every step of, that Scott outlined in his newsletters, starting, I think came in at number 7. And Scott would lay out an assignment and she would do it. And that's how she took Right to Freedom. Every module, every step. Yeah, that's why it's so good.
Yeah. Integrity.
Yes, yeah, yeah. And that plus a couple of decades of experience teaching writing.
It helped. Sure, that helped. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we're the privileged ones to have it.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah.
Who's next?
Well, I can go next because I went off in a different direction.
Mm.
Well, because in last week's video, last week's show, I talked about doing this for nonfiction because that's my main focus. So, going to continue with that. So instead of a scene, you're going to get a preview of a paragraph from the next newsletter.
Oh, yippee.
Treat.
So my research, it's still on bib cards because I'm still reading the book, but is from this book, The Book of Memory by Mary Carruthers, where she is talking in great depth about the memory and intellectual processes and traditions of the Middle Ages. So, I mean, I've got 4 bib cards of small writing, and I am maybe a third of the way through the book. So there's
Great
a
praise.
lot there. But I took 2 quotes that I was working with that were related because the previous newsletter was about discursive meditation, which was something that was really developed in the Middle Ages. And so I want to talk about that a little bit more as sort of a review before going into the theme of memory, which is what this next issue is going to be about. So I had 2 quotes that I had gotten from this book. One of them, she was quoting Hugh of St. Victor. And he wrote, "Meditation delights to range along open ground, where it fixes its free gaze upon the contemplation of truth, drawing together now these, now those ideas, or now penetrating into profundities, leaving nothing doubtful, nothing obscure. The start of learning thus lies in lectio," which means study, "but its consummation lies in meditation." And then 40 some pages on, she's talking about how meditation led into composition. They are deeply related. So composition in the Middle Ages is not particularly an act of writing. It is rumination, cogitation, dictation, a listening and a dialogue, a gathering of voices from their several places in memory. So I was working with those 2 quotes as to synthesize them and work on the beginning part of the newsletter, which harkens back to the previous one and sets the stage for this current one. So this is still a first draft, but it's getting to where I want it to be. Meditation and composition are deeply intertwined in the medieval context. They can be thought of as the inner and outer faces of understanding. Meditation integrates and connects experiences and ideas. It is the processing of raw materials that we consume from books or other media and personal experience. Composition uses the same raw materials and the understanding gained through meditation to communicate that understanding to others. Even if you don't actually share your composition, the act of creating it brings incredible clarity.
Wow.
So,
Oh, that's
so
an
there's a little teaser
yeah.
for the
Oh,
upcoming newsletter.
another great issue about to come out. So that's very exciting. Do you have a little card you can hold up where people can find your newsletter?
I could make one. Hold that thought. All right. If you go to meljeffcoat.com, there is a link to the direct newsletter page right there on the page.
Or you can start with his book, Turning the Page,
There
which
is a link to that as well. Yes.
and it will give you an overview of discursive meditation.
Yes, it will. And so if you wanted to start with the book, you can go from there to the newsletter. Either way, the newsletter is the trial for 30 days is only $12, which just about covers the cost of printing and shipping it. So basically, it's a giveaway other than the cost of materials and shipping.
Thank you, Mel. All right.
It's always a generous giveaway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all subscribers, you know?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So mine is longer because my research came out of my dilemma that I discussed in the last episode. And it had to do with ecology. And I was a little bit stuck. And it's, sometimes this was an example. I think last week's episode for me was an example of rubber duck debugging. I may have used that phrase before. Rubber duck debugging is the magical thing that happens when you're working on a problem and you're stuck on it, and you grab a pal and you say what the problem is and looking for help, and just in stating the problem, you come up with the answer. You could just as well have talked to a rubber duck. So anyway, stating the problem helped me figure out, well, what to do about it. And so now we've got a full scene here, and it is led by. So it's happening at the early part of the book, and there has just before been a ceremony of creating a Lukasa for the timeless way of building. And as the ceremony breaks up, Bertie, who is blind, says, "I have to pee." And Jenna says, "Oh, they've trained a potty. Let's go check it out." And they walk away. And on the way, Dylan, Jenna's best friend and Bertie's boyfriend, says, "I told you to go before we left." And so they walk off. And here we go. This is called Really Nice. Bertie, Jenna, and the ghost of Edith Piaf soundtrack a torch song as they walk to the grove. "Going before I leave," rounds the chorus. "Will I go? Ah, how would I know?" If they were linked, a smoky piano would lend moral support right there. Being out here in open Thou, they're constrained to this intimate a cappella. A feeling, an urge to share, an opportunity for Jenna to inscribe for Bertie, to practice a basic move of the telepathy mechanic she and B are playtesting these days. What Jenna chooses to inscribe starts with a message template. You could call it, "This is nice, really nice." The feeling meaning underneath nice, really nice, serves as a vessel, a well-charted knowing of pleasantness, being pleasant, which the template fashions into a carrier. The pleasant feeling's context It's this completes the message. By the very nature of their design, though, the inscription mechanic allows no words and no pictures. Just know the feeling in its context. Don't bother thinking about it. Discover what comes through. Bertie pulls Jenna's arm into her waist with an affectionate squeeze. This ground they are picking their way through seems mighty uneven for Jenna's town-dweller feet. She trains her eyes on every lump and clump, her wobbly ankles objects of suspicious kinesthetic interest. This adventure has some raised stakes, most notably that Jenna is the only one of the pair who can see where they are going. She slides into speech at the song's fade out. Be this grove where we're headed? Yes? Well, I trust Dill treated you to an aria about the beauty of Brea Houstonia when you were swanning around the porch? Oh, yes. I believe the predominant motif was, ooh, mama. Jenna laughs. Yes, voluptuous, right? Right. And that was the overwhelming sum and substance we could make out from the porch. Mountains swelling in the distance, plump hills nearby, proud families of trees all along them, sly slinking minxes tucked between sturdier trunks, light gleaming of birth and youthful vitality. Dazzling. Bertie giggles. Are we still talking about the land? Hush you, Jenna says. Bertie leans in more confidentially. There was a touching tenderness along that ledge where we stopped. Really, I felt it reaching toward us from step one. Dill and I quick traded on that after the ceremony. We must do a full 3 brief. Deal, Jenna says, slowing to a stop. Back to the grove. Here comes my inscription. She closes her eyes and waits for the after image to settle out. Poetic thrumming in her chest resonates up and out. Together, Bertie says. 1, 2, 3. They both raise their arms in fiero and shake pretend pom-poms toward the cheerful grove. Yay, you! Yay, us! They return the cheer. They resume stride, and Bertie says, so tell me about this privacy curtain. Jenna glances down and sees Bertie's sure feet threading easily, little paper rafts floating down a gentle stream. She drops all but tiller duty and tries to channel Bertie's grace. A gift of Goofy, and that's all I know about it, as usual, Jenna said. I remember asking her one time how she comes up with these gifts of hers, and all I got was, endless variation, spinning. She said that? No, not her. That came from Kona. When any of us tries to pin her down, it's usually Kona that responds. Jenna chuckles. Drives my dad over a wee bit of an edge. They're now perhaps a dozen feet from the grove's perimeter. What can I tell you? Jenna says. While we've been walking toward the grove, I've seen no hint of any human structure. Trees and grasses swaying at polyrhythms with the breeze, dappled light. I've been drawn to a particular area, though. It's as though I've seen a gentle shimmer around a patch about 6 feet across and 10 feet high. Not that I see it when I look for it. We're getting close, aren't we? Bertie asks. Close as comfort, Bernie, big as life, pokes his grinning head through the curtain. I hope I haven't kept you ladies awaiting. We just got here, Bertie says. Bernie leans back and emerges belly first from the curtain. Like the happy couple said, it's nice, really nice. Kind of makes you feel good about the whole thing. He ambles off toward the water pump, shaking his head slowly. Points, Goofy, you old flirt. Jenna turns her back to the potty area Jenna turns her head back to the potty area to find its disguise restored to perfection. Sky said you find your reflection and walk on through, Jenna says. I don't know how that applies to you. To be fair, I only have a vague idea how to find it by eye myself. Birdie raises both arms and outlines her own silhouette in front of her. I sense a kind of me-sized opening right here. Do you see a me-sized reflection? No? I'm going to try it, Birdie says, and in she goes, dissolving into mirage. Can you still hear me? Jenna calls in. Loud and clear. Birdie's reply comes back as though nothing stands between them. You tell me what you hear next. Jenna stands still, listening near and yonder. Her soundscape fills with breezy sighs and moans in leaves and limbs, punctuated by gossip of bugs, birds, frogs, and pockets of people behind her. Nothing from inside. Interesting, Birdie says. I'd appreciate such acoustics in my bathroom at home. I'm going to walk around where you are, check what it looks like from other angles, Jenna calls in. Go for it. Small stones at either side of Jenna's feet scribe a subtle path that Bernie and Birdie traversed out of and into the private area. Clearly visible now, but without having seen the entrance, she can't be sure she would have spotted them, camouflaged among the mossy tufts. More such stones branch to either side, arcing into a broad circle traced around the hidden room. Taking the branch toward the right, Jenna begins a circuit, keeping to a couple of hands' distance from the stones. Looking up and through, she sees the home site where they'd come from, but no one and nothing in particular right here. She chances a light press of her open palm beyond the stone line. Her hand slides off of something insubstantial. It's tempting to test it further, but that's the kind of challenge that the likes of Troy and Todd Beatty will take up with relish. Just as she comes around the other side toward the entrance, she meets Goofy starting a circuit in the opposite direction. How does the privacy curtain work, Goofy? Jenna asks. Watchema appears on top of Goofy's arm and replies, Do you see that it does work? I do, Jenna replies. Where are you looking? Jenna sweeps her hand along the peripheral arc ahead of her eyeline. What do you see? Watchema continues. I see Bernie and Kevin's dad yucking it up at the water pump, the billies behind them, and well beyond that are the lower branches and trunk of that formidable tree that Chris called the Queen. Daisy-faced Astor arises to take Watchema's place and asks, Knowing that this immediate area can be ringed in privacy, how would you expect it to work? Jenna says, I'm going to have to think about that. Is there anyone who can see through it? Can you? Kona takes over, emerald eyes closing and opening in a slow blink. Can one see what one wishes not to see? Well, fair enough. I don't want to see Birdie in there, and I really don't want to be seen when I'm in there. Jenna frowns. But suppose some naughty bandit kid's looking. What's the fail-safe? Asked like a Lydian, born and bred. Kona leaves Jenna on the Ponderosa as Goofy heads toward the back. Jenna steps just aside of the entrance path. B, I've made it around. Right on cue, Birdie says, stepping out and touching Jenna lightly on the arm. I'll wait here while you take a turn. Yes, thanks. Less mirror than ghostly tapestry in shades of brown, green, and yellow, Jenna's reflection in the privacy curtain certainly shows the wispy permamus on her head well enough. She resists the temptation to fix the unfixable and steps inside. Of course, she's still outdoors, but she immediately feels a cozy envelopment of shelter and rest. Open above, with the same moss underfoot as the entry path outside. The main attraction stands opposite the entrance, nestled into a small bed of ferns and periwinkle. Looking straight up from the center, white puffs of clouds traverse blue sky, screened by multiple levels of branches from the 3 trees. On this early spring day, their overlapping structure is easy to see, as is the promise of oasis when the canopy is in full leaf under a hot summer sun. The fixture is the same hands-free type she has used since her own potty training. She finds no obvious sign of the reclamation stack, But that stuff is probably easy enough to bury. Or maybe it's hiding behind another privacy curtain inside this one. Not the day's most comforting line of thought. A shingled overhang protects from rain overhead, high up front for the likes of Chris and Monty, angled for runoff at the back. She lowers her weight on the wooden seat and, yes, the customary mist covers the customary places. Memory takes her to a middle school henge trip, for the much anticipated experience of sanitation through the centuries, better known as the shit show. Appalling, heart-wrenching, stomach-wrenching. No wonder parents had to sign permission slips. The presentation began with a guide. Angie Weir, as it happened, she who inspired the moniker Henge Weirdo. Angie held up a small roll of soft white paper and stage whispered, "This," pausing to make sure everyone in the audience saw the prop, "is loo roll." A few beats later, Bradley Boynton had asked, "How do they get it through the sprayer?" The kids all laughed. They had none of them ever known loo roll to be anything but the microscopic barrier that arrives as mist and exits by way of the vacuum flush. From dung beetles to sewer rats, E. coli to Hep A, squats to chamber pots to bidets, sanitation through the centuries ended in song. When they exited the henge and rode the trolley back to school, they were still singing the jingle that helped convince humans on Earth to abandon their foul, antiquated sewage systems in favor of the radical, closed-loop recycler that made off-planet travel possible. The 21st century loop. What's that? It's what we do. We do. We do, we do with our poop. In honor of childhood memories, Jenna triggers the flush with a classic audible. Good girl! Whoosh! All gone. Through the diffuse light of the curtain, Jenna spots trouble on the hoof. Penny Beatty, in full pissed-off superhero stride, bearing toward Jenna's 9 o'clock. The face she's wearing shows not the slightest concern that anything might stand in her way. Before Jenna can work up a shout, Penny charges right into the curtain and gets a taste of the old equal and opposite. She's stunned, but all right. With a giggle, Jenna calls, "Be right out."
I've never, ever in anything I've read such an amazing account of a bathroom.
So I had some cards already, because I said that this was something I'd been working on for a while. One of them, its tagline is, "The potty is nice, really nice." And that has Bernie's line about it has a way of making you feel good about the whole thing. Another one, "How does the privacy curtain work, Goofy?" And just like that, who knows? But the new card is called Sanitation Through the Centuries at the Henge. And what I learned from my research, which is not well cited at this moment, is about this thing called the closed loop, which is literally the kind of reclamation system begun with, it's a improvement over what they have on the International Space Station. And it's the sort of thing that SpaceX is working on to take people to Mars without bringing an entire reservoir with them to flush things down the toilet. And it's rather remarkable. And it's the sort of thing, as soon as you read, it's like, shouldn't we all have one of those when
Yeah.
that, forget Velcro. Let's have that.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, that would be open a door to making it a whole lot easier to be off grid.
Yeah. I mean, everyone off grid, off
Yeah.
that grid.
Yeah. Off that grid. Yeah. Yeah. That'd be a nice
Use
grid.
water for drinking
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Oh,
swimming
yeah.
and fishing.
Oh, outstanding. Anyone else have any comments before we go on?
I can only echo you. That is a marvelous string of sentences and words and thoughts about a bathroom. It's
Everything's so interesting on Lydia. Okay. Well, mine is also part of the Roanoke story, and it picks up where the story left off, right immediately where the story left off, where Teresita, who is our neurodivergent person who is really only at the very dawning of acquiring language, even though she's already in her late teens. And she's considered probably to not be fully competent, although they're going to find out she really is. And she's kind of been drug along to the buildup, mainly because her sister couldn't find anyone to watch her because they were all going to the buildup too. So she knowing that Teresita usually just finds some place to crawl under a table or a staircase or some small space that she can wiggle herself into, she figures, she'll find a tree to sit under and just brings her along. Because of that, no one has asked her to turn off the link, and she has been, as we left off, she's been playing umpteen times through, which she already has been doing for a while, playing the tape of Bala making a Bezier belt. And so she's where we left her off last time. She'd settled at a spot at the between some surface roots of Jinx, and Jinx had kind of coaxed her into a little spot where Jinx drops some branches to shelter her from view of the others, and then lifts a curtain of branches, exposing a patch of bast in the view shot of Teresita. So this one is called Gathering with Bala, and it picks up where we left off. A short gasp, and off she went, running down the gentle slope to the tall patch of bast that marked out the course of a little creek, invisible until Teresita stepped into it up to her ankles, though she still barely noticed it in her excitement. Beautiful bast, she offered to Bala in her most fervent vow. Then, watching Bala's recording in the link for guidance and viewing the strands present before her, she stroked the grassy plants from their base upwards. Several strands separated themselves from their brethren and allowed Teresita to gather them. She continued in a long upward stroke until they were fully separated from the still growing portion. She watched Bala separate out the wilted ones, which he placed in the pocket of his apron. But then she suffered a stab of panic, as she had no apron and no pockets. I am in a greenhouse, you are in the wild. Drop, little wilted one, drop near where she found you. This was a clear and very happy message arising in her vow. The voice was familiar, but new and fresh. Teresita let 3 strands fall back to the ground. Strangely, not finding it strange, Teresita's bast collection followed the motions in the familiar recording with occasional specific guidance, as when she could not manage folding and tying the little bale together. Like this, so you can pull the strands out one by one without disturbing the others. That instruction got a warm thank you back from Teresita as she headed back up the hill to her cozy spot at the base of Jinx. So
You made it happen.
yeah, and I don't know how it happened, but they made it happen. And through it all, Teresita hasn't really quite figured out she's now using language. She's just so in the moment. So my research
Sweet.
card. My research card was on bast, which I discovered is mostly bast fibers are generally taken from the inner bark of trees like willow, mulberry, or birch, to name a few. But bast can also be extracted from the woody stems of flax to produce linen. And then I found a YouTube video of Seth from Sage Smoke Revival, and his favorite material in where he lives in South Idaho is dog bane, and he harvests the dry canes, and he showed how he gets the inner fibers out of the canes by cracking the canes and then peeling off the woody portions. So that was a little bit not the kind of bast that I wanted. So I chose, based on the research, to come up with a fantasy bast on Lydia. Bast comes from a grassy plant that is all fiber. You just have to separate the strands of the grass, long grassy leaves. So that's fictitious, but then so much about Lydia is, I mean, if you can have a bathroom like that, you can get bast from a grassy fiber. So
Yeah, I haven't heard in Elon Musk's presentation on the closed loop system anything about loo roll. That's what's fun. It's so much fun to anchor it in something real.
yeah, and then find the people in that world don't are giggling about something we take so much for granted.
Yeah. But yes, the bast fiber, you and I may have, a year apart, stumbled on some of the that because I didn't know the word bast.
Uh-huh.
But I went searching for bark cloth.
Oh,
So I
uh-huh.
knew that was a thing. And then, as one does, you just sort of weave it. It's like, well, what did they do to make it softer? Well, you don't necessarily need to make it softer if you start with something softer.
Yeah,
And there we go.
yeah. And so then my other research is for a section that I haven't written yet, which is when she's going to actually make the belt. So I had to
Mm.
do some research on macrame and tying the knots. And so so I've already got it in my mind how she's going to construct the belt. I think it's going to be of a macro of cordage outlining the outer belt with the little strands being looped in as the cordage is made, and then those strands will be woven together to give the inner workings of the belt so that it has a stable structure and a very, very soft weave, because we know we saw Bala weaving.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
already,
my view of it is, because it's net weaving and he's saying look for the place where it wants to go, it's
yeah,
it's irregular on the
yeah,
in the middle
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Just yeah.
yeah. We
But
aren't
yeah,
getting
the
there yet.
structure on the outside totally makes sense.
Yeah, so she's going to, and I've already looked up and another YouTube video. Well, actually, the same one shows it too. How do you turn the fibers into cordage? And the beautiful thing about the dog bane is that it makes very, very fine cordage. You can use it for fishing line, and it's soft, so it rolls up into a roll nicely. And I thought, oh, that's going to be very nice to visually have to make a belt. Although I think she's going to use the flat fibers for the weaving part, where they have just their own gentle roll.
Is there anything better than collaborative writing of a novel?
So I don't know what's going to happen when Bala starts talking to his parents about Teresita. Is he going to think he has an imaginary playmate?
Bala's not a dodo.
Yeah, no, I know.
And they don't think he's a dodo.
Yeah,
He's
but
he's not he's not he's compatible with Teresita in this lovely way. Uh, but he knows what's going on, as anyone does on
Uh-huh.
that ship that they're on. And he's a younger kid.
Yeah.
He's probably just a year or two younger than Teresita.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Of course, the episodes from the vessel go back to when he was a little kid,
Yeah.
and this was from when he was a little kid.
Yeah.
But somehow, older Bala
Yeah.
is communicating with Teresita.
Yeah. And they're both so natural about it. And it's kind of interesting because no one, up till now, no one's been able to have two-way communication with the ship.
That's right. So much fun. So did the research drive your writing to any
No,
extent?
the research was required for the writing because I wanted to know what is this stuff called bast and how might it grow? And I didn't like how it grew. And I didn't want her to have to cut woody stems and pound them with one rock on another rock, lay it on a rock and pound it with an nah. So I used it to guide my fantasy.
I would like to have your fantasy bast because I have tried to process flax and it's hard. It's hard work. Um, Easy enough to grow, but actually processing it into fiber is takes a lot of knowledge and skill and tools and equipment.
Really do linen.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even get to the point where I could get the fiber out consistently. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I was really, yeah, this was quite a while ago, but did you have to let it rot for a while
Uh-huh.
before you can even get the stuff out? And
Yeah.
I'll try it again at some point, probably, and actually make sure I have the proper tools on hand before I even start it.
Well, Sethov from Sage Smoke Revival has some good tips on, when you start at the very beginning, you can just crack through the woody part and peel it off. But you can only do that once. As you move down the fiber, once you crack it, you have to work both ends from where you were and where you've been, both gently back and forth to the middle. Otherwise, it'll just tear off in little sections.
I'll have
And
to
you
see
little
if his
stubby
what did you say,
fiber.
dog bane?
Dog bane, yes.
Yeah,
And
so to see if that grows here.
the YouTube channel is Sage Smoke Revival, and he said it can also be done with milkweed, but where
Oh
he
well,
lives, dog bane is most,
Yeah. I bet you got milkweed.
we definitely got milkweed.
yeah.
Can a Bezier belt be far from your future? I am looking forward to your your follow-up on that and describing how she's doing it. I can see from your description of what she's doing so far, it's so clear.
Yeah. Oh, good, good. Well, Sam, Bala's teaching her, so we've already got the foundation for it already. That part's already written, so she's simply going to have to do it. She's seen it many times, and of course, she's got a private coach.
Maybe the world's expert off-world. Yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Wow. Thank you all so much for participating in this enjoyable challenge. And thank you again so much, Victoria, for doing all the research-driven writing you did in creating this masterpiece and for guiding us in your steps. And remember that if you want that newsletter, on research-driven writing. You've only got a few days to sign up because that issue is going to go to the printers in about a week. Well,
Super.
thank you all.
Where can people find us?
Of course, you can find us at LiLLiPub.org. It's where we hang out when we're not here in YouTube land. LiLLiPub.org. We have a whole lot of fun. Oh my gosh, the place is exploding since Victoria's book has come out.
Literally. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
you really got to come on over. See you
Ding,
there.
ding, ding.
We will see you there.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.